Good evening, Jeopardy fans, and we are live with another episode of Hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel. Once again, I am Andy Saunders, and let's get right into introducing tonight's panel. First up, returning to Hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel, Darren Harris-Fain. Thanks for joining us again, Darren.
Hi, Andy.
And also, the current champion after Friday's games, 5 times over $100,000. Welcome to Hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel, Alan Lin.
Hi.
So, sorry for the slightly later than usual start tonight. We had a couple of technical issues that we needed to sort out. Didn't quite sort them all out. As you could see by the lack of title cards, I have absolutely no idea why Hangouts was not letting my screen share working like normal. But, you know, sometimes that happens. I make some sacrifices to make it easier for the panelists to connect. And sometimes you get, you know, that sort of thing happen. Oh, well, thanks for joining us. Some other, while everyone's connecting to the Hangout, some other housekeeping notes. Coming up on Friday, you'll see the first episode of Jeopardy Live Panel Pavlov's being released. The first episode is titled Know Your Canada. I'll be taping that with David Kendall later this week. We're going to be, of course, he's from Winnipeg, and we'll be talking about various things that come up on Jeopardy a lot. And, of course, with this episode, it'll be various things about Canada that come up on Jeopardy a lot. Of course, with the online testing coming up at May 30th, May 31st, and June 1st. Make sure you go to Jeopardy.com to register for that. So, Alan, you certainly had quite a good week last week. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
So, if I've heard correctly, you were a local, being from Santa Barbara, they brought you in as a local alternate first. Can you kind of talk us through how that was, your first time at the studio? I guess it was, you know, a couple of months before you taped these?
Yeah, so for last week's episodes were taped at the end of January, but the first time I went into the studio was mid-December last year. And to be honest, I think it helped a lot to go in as an alternate first. I got to kind of see how everything worked, and also also really kind of realized that I was not good at getting up at 6:30 in the morning, and needed to adjust my sleep schedule a bit. And also, actually, the other thing is the clues when you're playing, they're a lot smaller than they are on TV. So I actually got a new pair of glasses between my day as an alternate and when I went on, because the first time I went over there, I guess I was using an old prescription, because I was squinting real hard to see the clues on the board.
Now, you also wear glasses, Darren. Did you have issues with seeing the clues when you were on?
No, I was fine. I just had to make sure, since I wear bifocals, to look over the top of my glasses. Otherwise, it would be fuzzy. But that wasn't really an issue. I have a question for Alan, maybe a comment. You talked about getting up so early. Disadvantage for contestants on Pacific time as opposed to those of us from further Eastern time zones?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, because I know when I went in as an alternate, like one of the players said that they usually worked the night shift, actually, and so by the time that she was taping her episode, it would have been the equivalent of like me staying up till 5 in the morning or something like that, and she was just like so exhausted. And I remember like seeing online some comments about how she kind of looked not very engaged and kind of like she was bored, but she was really actually just really, really tired and exhausted. And I think, you know, I guess I can't really complain that about getting up at 6:30, but certainly, you know, that's a factor in how well you play.
Now, for somebody from the Eastern time zone, how difficult might it be to try to keep your body on Eastern time? I don't know how well that might work, but like if you're used to waking up at 8 Eastern, that's 5 in the morning Pacific, which would at least give you the opportunity to at least if you're not used to getting up at 6:30 sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think having to kill an hour in the morning is not going to hurt your performance as much as getting up like 2 hours earlier than you normally would, right?
Yes.
And so even if your body kind of stays on Eastern time, that's probably not too bad for you, I don't think.
Yeah,
So,
my trouble was just getting to sleep.
Yeah, that's an
absolutely.
excellent point too for somebody coming in from the Eastern time zone.
Or Central in my case.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, was there a question in there? Sorry.
No, there wasn't. We were I think
Okay.
Darren just made a comment. That's okay. So aside from the realizing obviously that you needed better glasses, was there anything else that you would say helped from being a local alternate?
Let me think. I mean, I guess I got an extra month and a half to study some more stuff, and when you're in the studio, I guess it's closer to the real conditions, even if you're not on stage while the show is playing. You at least kind of see what the pace of the game is, and kind of what exactly you might be missing when you're actually going to be playing. Because I don't know, when I watch at home, at least, even when I'm like actively playing along, I don't really mind if I let my concentration kind of lapse for a whole category or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But I don't. You can't really afford to do that when you're actually on the show. So it's just kind of the closer you get to kind of the real game, I think the closer, the more you see like exactly kind of where your category weaknesses might be.
That's a fair point. And obvious. So I guess a bit of a follow-up. Did anything come up last week that you had studied in that month and a half?
Let me see. Well, yeah, something did come up, but I guess not specifically from Jeopardy studies. So there was the 27 Club, I guess.
Yep.
And I actually, well, I missed the Brian Jones one anyway. But I was reading Patti Smith's memoir, Just Kids, within that month, and she talks about the 27 Club in that book, because she was basically in the kind of music scene when Brian Jones and then died. So yeah, and Janis Joplin, which was a question I got. Yeah.
So it's interesting because it seemed like you were very up and down on the signaling device, especially with your second game. You certainly obviously you were not leading in your second game going into Final Jeopardy, and certainly were a little bit off the pace compared to definitely Dan and Mike. So do you want to, well, I guess you can chime in with some stuff as well, with some insight as well here, Darren, on the signaling device. But how was it, trying to pick it up and then pick it back up again? I guess trying to get it.
No, yeah, I totally agree, because you know, that first game I found such, I just, there was like, I guess I got into the rhythm, and then I think during the second game, I think I was actually buzzing in too early a lot. But obviously, like Dan and Mike were also incredibly fast. Yeah. And also they knew a lot of clues. I'm pretty sure that game was one of the kind of, I think we covered almost every single clue. I'm not sure, we might have negged like one or two, but it was definitely like out of all the games, it was clearly like the most competitive at the end. But I would think that the stats would kind of bear that out as well.
Yeah, I think in Double Jeopardy you got the first, the only one you didn't, the only clue you guys did not get in Double Jeopardy was the $2,000 clue in Poets and Poetry.
Yeah, which was the very last clue, right? Yeah. And oh man, I actually had a guess for that one because it was a Yeats poem with a place in it. So I was 50-50 on the Lake Isle of Innisfree, but if I had gotten that right, I would have lost that game. Because
true, yeah.
So I guess the crazy thing is it's a good thing I was in third place for that final.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what was I going back to say? Yeah, I you know, honestly, I never felt like I knew like when to buzz. I feel like some games it came, and then some games it went away. I never felt like I had a very good handle on that, and I'm not sure why. Because I think it was the same person arming the buzzer each time, but you know, I may have just, it may have just been kind of game to game, like whether I was, you know, coming off of a victory or a close game. That kind of will affect your mindset and probably like your buzzing speed, I think. So.
But yeah, certainly Monday and you opened and closed the week very strong on the buzzer, and Tuesday was certainly your weakest of the five. So I mean, just the I found the up and down nature of how things were going for you on the signaling device to be interesting. Now, how did you find the signaling device, Darren?
It's uncanny. What Alan just said is exactly what I felt during my 4 games. I never did feel like I totally mastered the timing. Some people will tell you that you should go off Alex's voice. Some people say, well, they tell you go off the lights by the game board. I went off the lights. And, you know, obviously I did well enough to win 3 games, but I never felt like I had the timing down. At the same time, you know, if you're coming in consistently too early or too late, during the break, Maggie will come up and talk to you. And she never talked to me about my timing.
That's true.
So I assumed that, and whenever people beat me, they were just beating me on the buzzer.
Yeah. Because so yeah, Darren mentions kind of the difference between going off the voice and going off the light, and I think, well, if I went off the lights as well, and I wonder if that might have something to do with how neither of us kind of felt kind of confident about the buzzing timing, because you know, when you're going off the light, you're obviously, I mean, you're still listening to Trebek, you know, finish the clue, but you're kind of anticipating something that the light doesn't, you know, absolutely correspond with the end of the clue. It will come late and early, like pretty often, because just by the operator kind of slipping up or kind of being a little slow. So I feel like even though it's maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I guess in the cases where the light is off, then obviously the people who go by the lights are gonna be able to get in faster. But then I wonder if like the people who go by Alex's voice, even when they miss those kind of aberrations, they would have a better kind of average buzzing rate, possibly. I'm not
Now,
sure.
now another point on lights versus voice. Now, you mentioned on one of your interviews you're 25.
Yeah.
So how much video gaming have or do you do?
Actually, not very much at all.
Okay.
and the stuff that I do has a kind of the maximum reaction time. Well, sorry, minimum reaction time required is going to be something like minutes.
Okay.
I play like Civilization and stuff. Nothing fast Twitch.
Okay, because I know Arthur Chu was the poster boy for going off the lights, and
Oh, yeah.
he did a lot of video gaming, and that a lot of fast Twitch video gaming, and so that was huge. That was really big for his reflexes were very honed off that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I would say of all of
also,
the. Go ahead.
Oh, Brennan Bushy also. I talked to Brennan after he defeated me, and he was 22 at the time and an avid video gamer.
Okay. That being said, we all saw what happened to Brennan in his TOC semifinal. Alex Jacob certainly owned the buzzer that evening. I seem to recall Brennan took like 40 to 45 clues to get in first on the buzzer in that game. So.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
But yeah, go ahead.
And he was also being beaten at time by Vaughn Winchell.
Yes.
Who doesn't strike me as a big video game guy, but maybe I'm wrong, Vaughn. I don't know.
I'm not sure if Vaughn's tuning in tonight, but I would say he's probably getting, if he is, he's probably getting a bit of a chuckle. Moving on a little bit. By the way, if anyone has any questions or comments for the panel, you've got the YouTube chat. I've seen a couple of things in there. There's also the hashtag Jeopardy Live panel on Twitter. If I like what I see, I'll read it out on the panel. A bit of a tangent here. The online test, I mentioned that already, May 30th, 31st, and June 1st. Obviously, both of you have had success with the online test, having used it to get on the show. So I was wondering if you guys had any advice for future contestants possibly hoping to get on with taking the online test.
Yeah, I don't know really, because honestly, like I obviously I studied before going on Jeopardy, but I never studied for the online test. And I'd taken it every year after I graduated college, so it was 5 years before I got my first audition, which was this year as well.
Okay.
And honestly, yeah, I'm not sure. I guess I treated it as just kind of a lottery, right? Because it's such a kind of yeah. Honestly, I didn't like put like way too much effort into the online test. I just figured, I'll keep trying out, and maybe they'll call me up one day.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure I got like passing scores every year that I took it. I guess theoretically I've seen that they say you need at least 35 out of 50, right, to be considered passing.
That's generally what I've heard as well, but obviously
yeah,
that's not official.
Right, sure. And I got 40 something, usually around 43 to 45-ish every year, and I didn't get the call until this year. So yeah, I guess I don't have any advice, unfortunately. I don't know if Darren, prepared for it.
I just took it each time it was offered, and
yeah,
it was like.
Okay, that's fine. And of course, I mean, I'll be asking the panels over the next month or so for advice as well. So that'll so if you're going to going to do some things, then if you're going to be taking the online test in the next month, then keep tuning in, because I'm sure we'll get lots of good advice.
I do have one bit of advice, though.
Okay.
You can find previous online tests on YouTube. Useful just to play along with that to practice the speed of it.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. If you've never done it before at all, then yeah, definitely use one of those videos to at least know what it's going to be like before you start. So I did do that. So that's good advice.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so my next question, kind of on the topic of daily doubles. Obviously, Alan, you did quite well in both finding and responding to daily doubles. I think last week you were 7 for 9, which is well above average. I think an average player playing an average person playing 5 games would usually find about 6 of them on average. So. Were you glad? Obviously, it seemed like you certainly had a strategy in terms of trying to find them. Were you glad that you had taken that route, hunting around the board for them?
What was I though? I feel
it
like
seemed like you. I mean, you were certainly starting at the $800 level, which trying to at least avoid the 4s.
I did start at 800 instead of 400. But I think at least most of the time I also took categories in order, so I wasn't skipping around at least. But yeah, I was not. I guess I didn't like taking the 200 and 400 clues because those are usually easy enough that it's going to be just a buzzer race, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're just more likely to lose control of the board if you go there. So I would prefer to stay in something where you're likely to where you have a chance of getting a daily double, and if you don't have a chance, and if you don't get it, then you have a chance of you have a higher chance of keeping control of the board. But I guess one thing I tried, which may be good or bad, I still haven't decided even now. So I know that most people will go to categories that they like first, right? I mean that's I guess that makes sense. But I actually, at least for the first couple of games, I tried to do the opposite. I actually I actually went to categories I thought I would be bad in first. So I guess my reasoning there was that if there was a daily double hit in a bad category, it would be early in the game, and therefore if I hit it, then I wouldn't have much to lose anyway. But if my opponents also hit something in that category, because most people will still tend to follow category. So if they hit something in those categories that I would be bad at, it would still be early in the game and they couldn't gain too much on me. And then conversely, the categories at the end I would be good at. And so if I hit those, then I would have the opportunity to either catch up from behind or to lock a victory.
So from that perspective, you were certainly a fan of I guess leaving Poets and Poetry till the end was a deliberate choice on your behalf.
Yeah, that's right. Because I was pretty confident on Poets and Poetry, and so I purposely left that for last. But so I guess this only works if you can clear the board, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think like Thursday was kind of a bad game for that, where we left a lot on the board in general, and so we left some clues at the end. So definitely, if you don't think you're going to get through to your good categories, obviously you shouldn't leave the good categories to last.
Well, that I have about a game from last week. As a native Ohioan, I was very frustrated, worrying, are we going to get to the Ohio category ever? Were you saving that for last?
That was a video category, so it had to be played no matter what. So I was thinking of that, but I don't know if like the other people were thinking of that. But yeah, a video category is always going to be played through. So you can, yeah, if you leave it for last, then you're almost surely going to clear the board if you leave a video category for last.
So I'm just curious, because these are the things you're saying here are very similar to how I would play the game. So from that perspective, I'm quite enjoying hearing what you're saying, because it's, you know, it's like, yeah, I would. That's what I would love to leave my best categories till the end for that reason. I would want to leave the video categories to the end because that means you clear the board. You're it's my hope that more people will hear your interview here and at least play the game similarly in the future. I'd be quite happy at home as a viewer if that happened, for sure. Oh yes, and starting at $800 too, or you know, the second row on the board. That's another good way of playing the game, in at least my opinion. Were there any weird tape stoppages during last week's games?
Yeah, there was. So it was on Friday's game.
Yep.
So Friday, excuse me. Friday's game, if you notice, like during Double Jeopardy, we were jumping around a lot. Like it was going category to category. I don't know that we stayed in a category for more than two questions at a time. And it's also the fifth taping of the day, right? You know,
yeah.
The players are getting tired, but you know, Alex Trebek is getting tired too. So we hit a clue in the mythology category, I think. And he actually read out the wrong. He read out the wrong clue. He read out one for a different dollar amount, and so they had to take out both clues. And yeah, and we had to wait for like 10 minutes while they were coming up with some replacements.
That's interesting because, yeah, they only usually have one replacement. So if they have to replace two, then they need to come up with a seventh clue on the spot.
Yeah.
Was there any, I mean, there was a little bit of controversy on some of the internet spots regarding Big Red Spot versus Great Red Spot.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that influenced the you know, that wouldn't have caused the loss for me. So I haven't worried about it too much, but certainly it is more commonly known as the Great Red Spot. I understand that. And well, obviously whatever the judges say in the moment goes, even if it's terribly wrong.
Because Alex seemed to accept that right away, and almost as if he was prepared for it. And
yeah, I mean, it's also possible that he just said he heard red spot, and that's all that really kind of mattered for him. I can't you know, fathom the depths of Alex Trebek's mind.
Fair enough. Yeah. So my next question, and also Darren can chime in on this one as well. What's it like watching Jeopardy now that you've been a contestant and taped, you know, been in the studio, been on stage? So I guess for Darren the last couple of years, but for Alan the last couple of months, what's it like taping? So yeah, what's it like taping the, you know, watching the show now that you've been a contestant on it?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I still like when I'm watching my own games, I still get nervous watching it, even when I know the outcome. I still get the sweaty palms and I get like shaky, and yeah, if you notice, like I was incredibly nervous through at least my first the morning games. You can see me fidgeting all the time. Well, and my voice shakes when I answer some of the questions. And so yeah, watching it, like I maybe to a lesser degree, but I still kind of feel the adrenaline. So that was definitely interesting. And I mean, okay, so to be honest, like after the morning games, I just kind of like tunnel visioned, and games 4 and 5 in the afternoon, I have only really the vaguest I had only the vaguest recollections of what actually happened during those games. So honestly, watching myself on Thursday and Friday was, I was as, you know, surprised as all my friends as I watched what happened. I mean, I knew I won in the end, but between the beginning of the game and the end, I wasn't sure what questions were going to come up. I wasn't sure if I got the daily doubles or anything. So that was exciting.
Yeah, you're definitely not the first person to be all like, well, you know, the game is a total blur. So
Yeah.
what about you, Darren?
And it was a two-part experience. Was on the low end of the Tournament of Champions record. And so watching the games I was on and when the TOC was declared was just nerve-wracking, in constant fear that somebody was going to do better than me. But then, you know, once I knew that I wasn't going, it became pleasurable again. And I also knew that since back, in the form of a question, I can just leisure and not pressure myself, just enjoy it.
No,
Nice.
yeah, I actually, I pretty much between my taping and now, I haven't been watching Jeopardy. I just couldn't, you know, I felt, yeah, I maybe I'll be able to start watching it again after, but for these couple months, I kind of stopped watching.
Have you started into? Obviously, you've won as of Friday. You've won 5 games. So have you started into your Tournament of Champions preparations yet?
Gosh, okay. I wonder if any of my competition is out there.
They are. They're watching. They're listening. Sorry.
Okay.
By the way, we have. I can tell you right now, we actually have Buzzy Cohen watching tonight, and he's on the live. He announced his presence on the live chat about 3 minutes ago.
Okay, I see. Well, I mean, to be honest, I haven't started studying yet. So maybe, you know, or maybe I'm lying just to make people out there underestimate me come Tournament of Champions time. But no, actually, I haven't started studying again, and definitely like a lot of I will have to relearn a lot of stuff as well. It goes pretty fast once you're not rehearsing it daily.
And Buzzy's reply to this is good, Alan. Very good.
Well, you should ask him if he's started. He's had like almost he's
had a year now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know.
Yeah, there are there is speculation as to when it's going to be. I don't think anyone's heard anything yet. So
yeah.
My best guess is that it will come at some point after the, as far as I know, the WGA's contract ends tonight, so
okay.
It could, when the Tournament of Champions tapes and airs, I would say, is very much dependent on when the writers come back. Obviously, the show's writers are WGA members, and if they're on strike, the show can't tape. So that's
right.
Certainly going to be a consideration for everyone. I'm not entirely certain what the show did back in 2007. I guess they just prepared really well and got a whole bunch of games in the can in advance. What's it like? Both of you can answer this question. What's it like as Alex kind of goes through the interview card and kind of gets to your 4th and 5th best stories?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Yeah, I definitely tried to put the more interesting ones first, and yeah, even by Thursday, I already felt like I was getting some pretty boring stories. But I don't know what I can do about that. And you know, I don't
It's
think
a good problem to
Trebek
have.
liked, huh?
It's a good
Sorry?
problem to have, sir. It's a good problem to have.
That's true, yeah. And yeah, I was gonna say that I don't think that Trebek particularly liked me. So you know, that kind of made our interactions not as well, I'm not saying
Really?
like he disliked me, but certainly he wasn't, you know, I don't think he warmed up to me as much as some of the other long champions.
That's too bad.
Yeah, I guess so. But you know, I'll see him again. So, well, he'll have to see me again too.
Yes,
You know,
yes. So, what was it like for you, Darren, as Alex kind of went through the card to the fourth best story?
Well, again, that I'm the most interesting person on the planet, but I came some good possibilities, and of course they put 5 on the card.
Mm-hmm.
By my third and fourth games, it always seemed like for the one I would have ranked 4th or 5th on that card. It's like, really, Alex, that one?
Yeah, you never know what he's going to pick for sure. So,
And he can go off script too. He never
Mhm.
did on me, but
yeah.
I've heard of him doing that.
No, yeah, he did. So there was one day that he was asking me about playing violin or whatever, right? So that
Yep.
was supposed to be like a lead-in to a story about this one concert I played, where we ended up having to play with like a whole kind of like a dozen bagpipers, and also like a bunch of Irish clog dancers. Uh, but he never instead he kind of just asked me who my favorite composer was. So that kind of like that cut into the story, and was pretty disappointing. But yeah.
Oh, and by the way, Alan, I'm not going to talk about today's game because people in the West haven't seen it yet, but I've
Sure.
seen it. As somebody who teaches and writes about science fiction, I was really stoked to hear about you in that workshop with Ted Chiang. Was that Clarion?
Yeah, it was at Clarion. So it was Clarion at San Diego last summer. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. So if you're a fan of science fiction and want to try your hand at writing some, I would definitely recommend you to go.
Very cool.
Nice. So, one thing that we haven't talked about too much here on Jeopardy Live panel is the contestant guest process. And in our pre-show, your coworker brought this up in your conversation in his conversation with you, Alan, as you were telling him you were coming on here. And so, for the sake of the viewers, what is the contestant guest process like? You can have a cheering section of it. You can obviously have friends come, watch you in the studio, but what is that process like for them? Like in terms of registering them?
It's pretty smooth. They give you like, well, when they call you to be on the show, one of the kind of forms they give you is kind of a guest form, and you just have to fill in their names, and all they have to do is show up and bring ID. And I don't know like how many people you can bring maximum, because I didn't max out on the people I brought. But yeah, as far as I can tell, it was pretty painless.
From what I've heard, I think the limit is 6.
Okay.
But I'm hearing this. This is not first-hand knowledge. This is second-hand knowledge.
All right.
So, one question I like to ask a lot here on panel. Obviously, you got two opportunities, as far as we know so far, to have lunch on Sony's dime at the commissary. So, my question for you here is, what did you have for lunch? Do you remember?
Oh, I do remember, because, well, I remember the what I had the first time when I was there as an alternate, because it was a It was basically a sandwich. I think it was like a Reuben, except that instead of bread, it was potato knishes. So it
Okay.
was like 2 knishes with meat and sauerkraut in between. It was pretty good.
Nice. But you don't remember what you had for last week's episodes?
No, I don't. It was probably another sandwich of some kind. But yeah,
Okay.
I do not have a firm recollection.
Do you have much recollection of your post-game chats with Alex?
Yeah, that's because I told you, like, I don't think he liked me very much, right? I don't
Yeah.
think I don't think he personally addressed me like once during those post game chats. And I mean I know they don't last very long, but you know I would have thought that at some point he would have you know personally talked to me, but I'm unless I'm totally forgetting, like he was either addressing us as a group or talking to one of the other contestants.
Huh.
Yeah.
I don't recall quite the same with mine, but I wonder if I have been lucky enough to go on Jeopardy and win.
Yeah.
Who are perfectly good players. Opportunity. And I wonder if Alex focuses on them more, something to walk away with, if not
Yeah,
a win.
that's totally fair, because like I mean I'm not like disappointed that I'm not best friends with Alex. I actually think it's kind of funny. But I mean, if I don't think I'm the most interesting person either. So if I were him, I'd be talking to like Mike from last week. I'd spend as much time talking to her as I could. And you know, obviously Trebek was pretty enamored with Mike too.
You know, you managed to go on 5 dates on one day. I think that's certainly worthy of being, you know, enamorment, I guess. I seem to recall, I know David Grigsby, now that I remember, or on last week's episode, he seemed to recall telling you, oh, you'll have plenty of time with Alex, but
Yeah. No, David was incredibly nice and gracious.
Yeah.
After that game, yeah.
My next question, everyone kind of has that moment, I find, or most people have that moment, especially with Jeopardy, where they kind of became a Jeopardy fan, almost fell in love with the show. So my next question for you, Darren, I don't know if you've ever answered this on panel before, but how did you become a Jeopardy fan?
I first saw Jeopardy back in the 1970s as a kid with Art Fleming. You know, I liked school, but occasionally I would pretend to be sicker than I was so I could stay home and watch game shows. And interesting, but I didn't become a fan then because most of the material was over my head. Watched it sporadically when it came on with Alex, but that coincided with my high school and college years, and honestly, I was too busy to attention to it. So it really wasn't until I heard all the buzz about Ken Jennings I started watching it again seriously, day after day.
That's interesting, and I wonder how many people, how many contestants were inspired by Ken Jennings' run to start watching or rewatching the show.
And the online test. You know,
Yes.
I don't live in New York. I don't live in LA. Try to get on the show in some way other than auditioning in person at a far-flung site made a difference too.
What about you, Alan?
Oh, I don't have a very interesting how did you get into Jeopardy story. Honestly, yeah, like when I was a kid, I would watch it off and on, but not like every single day. And then during college, I didn't have TV at all, so I didn't
Mhm.
watch Jeopardy for 4 years or so. It was only until kind of after I graduated and I had my own place and had a TV again that I just I started watching it every day. There wasn't any kind of like particular point
Okay.
or kind of person. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because I was doing a little reading about you, Alan, before I got on here, and I see you're a Quiz Bowl alum, right?
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I was like, I want to be clear that I was never really a very dedicated Quiz Bowl player, because I guess I don't know how much you guys know about kind of the whole Quiz Bowl circuit, but there's like a very intensely competitive East Coast schools, and our West Coast schools are just so geographically removed from kind of the centers of Quiz Bowldom that our competition was not very fierce. I never really studied too hard for Quiz Bowl, and I obviously had a lot of fun, but it wasn't something that I was super dedicated to. And I know a lot of other Quiz Bowlers are really they spend a lot of time on it, and
Mhm.
they obviously some of those skills must translate to Jeopardy, because like Matt Jackson did incredibly well.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that my quiz bowling
Yeah.
experience during
Mhm.
college was a giant part of my
Mhm.
life then.
Well, that's
Yeah.
interesting because university's Quiz Bowl team, and it's a young team, not a lot of experience yet. And I keep telling them, guys, watch Jeopardy, and they're like, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely much more motivated to study for Jeopardy because it's money instead of
Oh yeah.
whatever arbitrary Quiz Bowl prestige that you get for winning Quiz Bowl. So
Well, I mean, also for every Matt Jackson, there's also a Jerry Vinokurov who again incredibly
Oh, no.
incredibly talented quiz bowler, but
True.
and it just happens to be that maybe I've never really spoken to him, but it seemed like Final Jeopardy was one of the things where if you have too much knowledge, you might get tripped up, and sometimes that happens among. Oh, yep, Buzzy's still here. He was like, "Oh, Jerry, that's for sure." Yeah, that was Buzzy's second game last year, but. Yeah, I but that in all honesty, that certainly is one thing that can happen, and there were a lot of people who were thinking that the run that
He would do well.
that he would do well, that the run that Buzzy ended up going
Yeah.
on would have been was Jerry's, but no,
Yeah, I mean,
they're different enough games, so.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say there's some overlap, but not too much. I would say that Learned League is a lot closer to Jeopardy than
I would agree.
Quiz Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, both Learned League and Jeopardy definitely, I would say, test breadth of knowledge as opposed to depth of knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And also kind of they also kind of have more meta clues where you kind of can sometimes puzzle out the answer even without knowing even without actually knowing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like one of the banned idioms category from last week.
Yep.
I definitely did not know the members of the band, but that was the only thing that kind of fit into the phrase. So
by the way, the band is is at least partially Canadian, so hashtag know your Canada.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I'm actually completely out of my card is completely through. So this is about the time where I ask if Darren, do you happen to have any questions? I think you mentioned you
Yes,
had
I
one.
do.
Yeah.
So obviously you won all your games last week, and we know
Yeah.
that they tape 5 shows a day, so that meant you taped all 5 of those in a single day, which meant that any shows this week would have been on a subsequent tape day. Was it the
Yes.
next day, or did you have a longer break in between your tapings?
Yeah, this was all of last week's episodes were taped on Tuesday, and I assume like all your listeners know that it's usually Tuesday, Wednesday tapings.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this week's were the Wednesday tapings, so I only got the evening in between to rest, and I guess you guys will be able to decide whether or not that affected my performance.
Well, I was going to ask if you thought that was a good thing or a bad thing.
Oh, well, then I
Times.
guess I will answer. I thought it was a very bad thing. Yeah, because I went in thinking that I could win a game at least, but I certainly didn't go in thinking I could, I guess I think there was a possibility I could win 5 games, but I certainly didn't expect to win 5 games. So I was not. I don't think I was really mentally or even physically prepared to do it 2 days in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and I guess that's something that you don't really think about either until you get on, is how much you think it's like all mental, but there is a physical component too. You need stamina to be able to kind of last through multiple tapings, even in just a single day.
Well, on
Yeah.
the flip side, I had a whole week in between my tapings, and I'm not sure it did me that much good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, it's true. I was gonna say, like, if you have that whole week, but that whole week you're still thinking about, like, I'm gonna be back on Jeopardy. I know I wouldn't be able to sleep very well. I know I would be kind of nervous the whole time. And you had to kind of fly back and forth across the country too, right? So that also kind of compounds. Right. So that also compounds on kind of like the stress on you and your body.
Yeah, it's always interesting because one of my favorite Ken Jennings stories is that he was doing, it was about the time where he was, starting to do a lot of promotional work for the show, and because he had won 40-something games in real life, or 30-something games in real life already, and he in the weekend before the taping in which he lost, he instead of coming from Salt Lake City, his wife's family is originally from the Ottawa area, went to visit them throughout the first pitch of the Blue Jays game that weekend, and also then had to come back from the East Coast as opposed to Salt Lake City. And I'm almost wondering if that happened to be that extra jet lag might have not been too helpful for him.
No, yeah, I can absolutely see that happening, because Jeopardy really, like, it's kind of won or lost on fractions of a second, right? So that I had no idea about that story, but yeah. But some people just are crazy, incredibly good, no matter what conditions they're under. So I think the story is that, like, Julia Collins was playing Tournament of Champions while she had a fever.
Yeah.
So and I know my body is way too fragile for me to be able to kind of play at that level if I was sick. So
I think it's interesting how, some of the struggles that people have played through with, and
yeah,
completely unbeknownst to their competitors until afterwards. So of course Buzzy comments in with looking forward to hearing about the magic that is the last week in April. Apparently it's a good one for a streak, and that is very true. It seems like there are always, at least the last few seasons, we've had good runs the last week of April.
I wonder if they you know, the producers try to organize it that way.
Well, but the thing is, though, I mean, again, you know, games and I honestly believe it's just a matter of luck, because even for the sake of the producers, because, like, you know, as you said, the game is won and lost on fractions of seconds, and you know, if you get one, if you know, there's a great player who, you know, gets one bad bounce.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then
and I guess it's hard to identify who's going to do well in the live show, even from the auditions, because, you know, some people who are incredibly good during the audition will just kind of freeze up on stage.
Yep.
You know, yeah, I think, like, yeah, the one like biggest thing I would take away from like doing Jeopardy is just I have an incredible amount of respect for everybody else who has been on Jeopardy, because you know, at home you might be yelling at them for you know, forgetting some stupid answer or flubbing something, but really it's a lot of pressure that you have to go through, and to be able to kind of perform on stage. Yeah.
But yeah, I was just, you know, leafing through J Archive quickly. I think the last 4 seasons we've now have had a run going as April turns into May. Julia Collins, Greg Soroka 2 years ago, Buzzy last year, and now you. So. But yeah, absolutely, you're absolutely right, for sure. So do we have any other questions that you've got, Darren, or do you have any questions for either of us, Alan?
Not right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone from I'd like to thank both of you for joining me on #Jeopardy Live Panel tonight. Everyone who tuned in as well on YouTube. So thank you very much. So I'm not entirely certain when I'm going to be taping the next episode of the next live roundtable, that is. I know that the middle school national championship tournament for NAQT is coming up next weekend in Dallas. There's usually a large contingent of Jeopardy alums who are at that. I personally won't be there, but if there is interest, I may tape a live round table dialing into someone's computer in Dallas to see and tape a live round table from there. Failing that, you'll see another live round table next week. And also make sure to pick up the new Jeopardy Live panel Pavlov's episode 1 will be Know Your Canada. So make sure Friday that will be released. Thank you again for joining me, both Alan and Darren. I really appreciate it. Not sure what happened to Tom Kelso. He was supposed to join us. Maybe he heard that, maybe he heard that one of his, I guess, Pat Kavanaugh was thinking about coming on and decided to duck away. For those of you who are unaware, there's a small rivalry between Tom and Pat in the Jeopardy Live panel Learned League Grundle. But yeah, so but no, that's my guess is something came up for Tom, and I'm sure he will apologize profusely to me later. So thank you very much for joining me tonight, both of you. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, so have a good night, everyone tuning in, and I'll give you guys a chance to say goodbye to the viewers as well.
All right. Bye.
Good night.
So yep, for everyone here at the JeopardyFan.com and Jeopardy Live panel, thank you very much for tuning in. You will see you soon, and have a great night.